All right, tonight, our Wednesday night study is going to be in the book of Job again. And we're going to put Job back in the ashes and look at him a minute again to kind of overlap a little bit on the chapter so everybody that wasn't here can kind of catch up and see where he's at. So we see in chapter 2 a second attempt by the devil to get a hold of Job. And we see that verse 6, notice what it says, "And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, he is in thine hand, but" what? Isn't that something? God was still protecting him, even though he's going through this rascal, the devil, getting a hold of him. And that's a blessing to think about when you're going through trials and afflictions. Guess who's still got a hold on you? God. Not just the devil, but God is limiting what he can do to you. Remember, the Bible teaches us that he will not put on you more than you can bear. Right? That means that you can go through the afflictions that he's given you. You have to rely on him. And that's exactly what Job does. So look what it says. He's going to touch him and go down to verse 7. It says, So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord and smote Job with what? Now underline that sore. Sore boils. Okay, now boils are painful in and of themselves, but this is a sore boil, which means it hurt. Right? It hurt. And whenever you have a boil, have you ever smelled a boil when it busts? It's putrid. Okay? It's putrid. And what's happening is he's got them from, remember, head to feet. Head to feet. And you think about that, it came on like that. Normally a boil takes, you see, starts out with a little sore and then gets a little bigger and then gets a little bigger, and then in a while it finally gets out big, and then you have to deal with it. But in this case, when Satan touched him, boom, it was a sore boil. All right, now most of us have experienced boils, and they're not pleasant. It's like a toothache. You can't think of nothing but getting that relief from that boil. All right, so you have to get the pressure off. Most people know how to do that, but it takes a while. So when you see a man that's afflicted, sorely afflicted, and now I want you to see how Job reacted. It says, "And he took him a potsherd," verse 8, "to scrape himself," where? Withal. What's that mean? All over. And notice what else he did. "And sat down among the ashes." Now remember, ashes in the Old and the New Testament was a symbol for what? I remember? Mourning. Okay? It was a symbol for mourning. All right? It was a symbol for mourning. But in Job's case, I don't think he was so much mourning as he was sitting in those ashes to help soak up some of that nastiness out of him. Because ashes can be used to help draw stuff. All right? So here's Job now sitting in a pile of ashes. And no doubt it had to be outside, because if he was inside, his wife would have run him out because he stunk so bad. But I want you to see what he's doing. He took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes. Do you hear him complain? Do you see him growling and fussing and just, chewing and gnashing on his teeth? No. You see him busy himself. Instead of running his mouth, he shut his mouth, and he's just dealing with the issue. And sometimes we need to remember that. Sometimes we just need to shut our mouth and deal with what we've got. That's a good thing, because remember, in this test, Satan has said, God, if you let me have him, he will curse you. He will deny you. He will give up on you. But Job is doing the opposite of what the devil expects so far. And in this trial, there will be no difference. Notice it says he was scraping his boils. So we see a lot here about Job not opening his mouth foolishly, about not being mad at God. You don't see that, do you? You don't see him mad at God. Matter of fact, you'll see his wife tells him to do what? Yeah, look at verse 9. Then said his wife unto him, Dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. Boy, now that's helpful. Not. Think about it. Here you are. You've got your mind kind of just steady on scraping them boils and not thinking about what's going on spiritually or physically with him. Now recall again, he's lost all of his livestock. He's lost a lot of his servants, all of his children, and now his personal health. What would you do? Put yourself in his shoes. Well, he ain't got no shoes on because he's got boils. So put yourself in his place. How would you act in these circumstances? And mind you, this is all just boom, 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 boom. It's no gradual, slow process. It's just zoom like the Indy 500. Okay? So this process he's going through, he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do and not opening his mouth and charging God foolishly or anything like that. Now here comes his wife saying, why don't you just curse God and die? You still maintaining your integrity, saying that you haven't done wrong and that you've been living right and all that? And well, she knew he had been. She had witnessed it. She'd seen him go out and pray for his children and offer sacrifices for his children. She's seen him in the cities doing judgments and sitting in the gates and being sought after for his wisdom. She's seen that. She knows him better than anybody. She knows him. But here now you can sense that this little stray parrot is sitting on her shoulder. I reckon who that is. The old devil. That old devil coming around, and if he can't get to Job one way, he's going to try the back door and get in to his wife. And she said, why don't you just curse God and die? Man, how discouraging. Huh?
That's his only help.
I know. God is his only help. Why would he curse him? And that's what he says. Look at the answer he says. Verse 10. But he said unto her, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. He says, the rest of the world talks like that. They give up on their gods. And there was a thing with the Idumeans and those different types of tribes that were around in that Asia place, Arabia and all that, that they would pick up a god and start working with it, and if they got tired of it, they'd throw it away. And that's kind of what the devil's suggesting here. Just throw this god away and you'll get you another one. And that's what his wife is saying, just like those women would say, hey, just throw it away and get you another one. Well, Job ain't buying from that, is he? No. He says, you talk like a foolish woman. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? Good question, huh? You've gotten all the benefits of being a child of God. You've been blessed. You've been saved. You've been kept safe. You've had a roof over your head, food in your belly, clothes on your back, shoes on your feet. All those good things. Most of us have made it through major sicknesses and come out fine. So with that, you think about it, God has blessed us in so many ways. But God also wants us to see that trouble and trials and the devil are going to come around. And he's going to try to prove a point and try to tear us down. That's what he wants to do. He wants Job to curse God and die so that Job will no longer be that effective witness in his community, in his country, in his area, so that he won't have a testimony to enlarge God or to glorify God. So the devil wants to interrupt that. And he wants the same thing from us. He wants us not to have a testimony, not to glorify God, and not to be in any way a light for God. He wants us to be in the dark. He wants us to share in that darkness with him. But if you're a child of light, you can't share in darkness. You're supposed to be a child of light, not a child of darkness. So he says, you're a foolish woman. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God? And shall we not receive evil? God sends trials and tribulations. God allows trials and tribulations. It's obvious from seeing behind the scene now, in chapter 1 and chapter 2, God's had a conversation with the devil. And think about what God said in both times now. He bragged on Job. Hast thou considered my servant Job? And God, if you think about it, he's jabbing the devil because the devil failed both times already. All right? He's failed. He didn't succeed in all of those taking aways. He did not succeed in making Job curse God and die. Now, here he comes with the boils, and here comes this little parrot sitting on his shoulder, and her name, I don't know what her name was, but she comes up and said, why don't you just curse God and die? Isn't that what the devil wanted? So she's listened to the devil. She shouldn't have. And I don't doubt she was a good woman. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that she was a saved woman. I don't doubt that. But sometimes we'll listen to the wrong thing, won't we? Sometimes we'll allow those bad thoughts into our head, and we have to cut them off before they develop into our mouths. So you see, it can stay inside. If you do away with it, it's not hurt anything, has it? If she hadn't said that and just come out and said, I love you, hon, you get better, and encourage him, that would have been good for Job. But instead, she comes out with a negative and says, just curse God and die. God's give up on you, you give up on God. And that's what the devil wanted her to do. So she listened to the wrong source, and Job had to correct her. You talk like a foolish woman. So Job says, hey, we take whatever we get from God and praise God for it. And that's the attitude we need to have. Whatever we get from God, whatever our lot is in this life, we need to thank God for it in all things. Rejoice in all things. Be thankful in all things. And glorify God in all things. Now look, he says in this last part of verse 10, in all this, underline this, did not Job sin what? So he did not curse God. He did not curse. He did not belittle. He did not complain. He did not do anything foolishly. But he did not, it says, did not Job sin with his lips. And how easy it is when you're down to sin with your lips. And that's another point. How easy it is to sin when you're not feeling good, or when you're not when you're going through that tribulation, whatever it is. It's easy to use your lips and complain and fuss and get the pooch mouth on God. So Job didn't do that. And that's something we need to take due note of when trouble comes to our house. Don't remember, just take it, continue to worship God and praise God, and you'll go through it. That's exactly what God wanted him to do. And God knew, by the way, what Job was going to do, didn't he? God knows all things from the beginning to the end. God knew exactly what Job was going to do. The devil didn't. Remember, the devil is not all-knowing, is he? He's not. God is, and God knew exactly what Job would do, and God allowed the devil at him to prove to us, hey, if Job can do it, we can do it. So remember now, under this chastening hand of the devil, Job did not sin. And we need to recall that and go to Job when we're going through that and study out Job's reactions and study out what he did. And instead of opening his mouth and running his mouth, he just shut it until his wife come around. Then he had to rebuke her. So now it says, now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that was come upon him, they came every one from his own place. All right, what's that mean? Yep, they came from where they lived, came from their homes, from their countries. They were different countries because you can see the names and what they were, where they were from. He had what's his name? Eliphaz. That sound familiar? Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. Okay? For they had made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and to comfort him. I hear Moto. So, now I want you to see, now that Job has gone through this, now word is getting out. Okay? And it's bad news travels fast, don't it? And it's circulated, and it's gone all the way over to their homes and their places where they live in their countries, and they've heard about it, and they've taken note and sent correspondence between each other and agreed to come over to Job's at a certain date. So they picked a day. All right? So here they pick a day. They had made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and to comfort him. All right? Underline that. These are the sorriest comforters and friends you can have. You think about that, though. How many friends do you have that are just like that? They stomp you when you're down. They stab you. They beat you. They cuss you. They do all these things, say you no count. They give up on you. A lot of us have friends like that that'll do that. So here comes three of his so-called friends. And who do you reckon gave him the nudge to go on and see Job? Who do you reckon gave him that nudge? So we see a driving force. The devil hadn't given up yet. Okay? He's still back in the background now. He's not being so upfront because he's had his chances with Job and it ain't worked. So he's going to try the psychological approach and have the friends come in now. He's had his wife come in, now the friends. It says, and when they lifted up their eyes afar off and knew him not, they lifted up their voice and what? In other words, when they got close to his house, they seen him and said, who is that? Is that Job? And it says they wept. Okay? They wept. And they rent everyone his mantle and sprinkled dust upon their heads toward heaven. So they're mourning with him. All right, supposedly. So they sat down with him upon the ground. Look at this. 7 days and 7 nights. They sat down with him on the ground. Now that doesn't mean they didn't take a potty break. That doesn't mean that they didn't go eat something or his wife didn't bring out something for him to eat. It doesn't mean that. It's just that they stayed in that spot for 7 days. All right? Now think about that. 7 days and 7 nights. And look at this sad statement. And none, what? They didn't comfort him, did they? They should have said, oh, my brother, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Is there anything I can do? Can I comfort you? What would you like to do? What would you like to hear? Can I read the Bible to you? Or can I make some kind of music to comfort you? Or just any little thing. But it says what? They didn't speak a word to him. And look how long, remember? 7 days and 7 nights. They didn't even speak to him. How's that for comfort? They just come staring at him. Now, how would you feel? You're sitting in a pile of ashes. You're scraping your balls. And here comes these boys and say, oh, maybe my friends will give me some encouragement. Maybe they'll give me some comforting words. Maybe they'll help lift me up where I can not be down in my misery. And they didn't speak a word. That's a sad statement. If you're a friend, you need to encourage the brethren that are down. They should have at least prayed with him. Many, many days. They should have at least been there to offer him some type of consolation, some type of help with him. But instead, they're silent. And that would hurt too. You think about it. Well, you're supposed to be my friend. How come you ain't helping me? How come you ain't trying to help me? You know, sometimes you can't help somebody, but you can at least be there for them, right? Well, they ain't saying nothing. How discouraging that would be to a friend that his other friends didn't care enough about him to even offer help or prayer with him. Instead, they went through the motions, they put the dust on, tore the robes in a typical sign of mourning, and then they shut up like clams. So we leave Job here, and look at this. It says, for they saw that his grief was very great. When you think about this grief, you have to be careful in grief that you don't go too far. I mean, there's nothing wrong with crying. There's nothing wrong with working through the issues that you're facing with that grief. And Job, remember, he has to work through all of this, the death of his family, the loss of everything, and now his bodily health. So he has to work through that grief. If you had 10 children and they got killed, what would you do? You'd be grieving, wouldn't you? You'd be grieving for a while. And no doubt he was grieving about his children too and weeping. But notice he doesn't say anything out of the way. He doesn't even speak to these boys when they come up to him. He doesn't curse God in their presence. He doesn't threaten God in their presence. He doesn't do anything to signal that he's give up. He's just grieving over the situation that he's in. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just be careful. You can't go too far and begin to run your mouth, open your mouth and insert your foot. All right? So here now we're going to leave Job sitting in that pile of ashes and having 3 vultures sitting around waiting for you to die. That's what it kind of feels like, ain't it? It's got 3 vultures sitting there. Supposed to be friends, but they're just waiting for him to die, I guess, till they speak. So think about this. Are we friends to our brothers and sisters? Do we care enough about our brothers and sisters to go and offer them some support, to lift up prayers for them, and to try to encourage them, to help them through that valley of affliction? So think about that and question yourself, what would I do in this situation? And then start working on your spirit and working on your soul and saying, Lord, help me to be stronger in those areas. All right, we'll stop there.